were to share like one thing that you feel like you've kind of figured out for like every woman in the world, like one thing that they should know and feel to experience with money specifically, what would it be?
I think the one thing that clicked for me is that there really is an abundance of money. It's like this open floodgate of like what's possible. So yeah, I guess it's the expansion that money can provide.
Hello and welcome to Her Money Club Stories. As you all know, my name is Rachel Minnie and I have Shan here with us today. I'm so excited to uncover more of her money story, and this is really for all of you in the Her Money Club. So the intention for these conversations is to really collect all of our journeys and how they've unfolded as we kind of navigated through different money experiences. We talk a lot about money strategy, life purpose, and really integrating the two to have this thriving life experience and the journey of that. As we share more and more of these stories, feel free to really dig into what pieces of your story are really most powerful for you, because that's what other women also need to hear and get to hear from an expansion standpoint. So with that, I'm going to have Shan share a little bit just about who you are, where you're from, and what you're up to in the world.
I'm Shan. I'm from England. I'm living in Israel at the moment, and I am doing yoga teacher training, which is really cool. I'm loving that. My background, so I started off studying law, which was something that I never really wanted to do, like at all. It was one of those things where, you know, when you just don't really know yourself as a person, you're like, okay, yeah, I'll do this because my voice isn't big enough to say what I actually want to do. So started going down that route, and then since then I've just really been on this journey of finding out what it is that I actually want to be doing and what really aligns with my soul. So it's been like clicking a bit more, like each way, each thing. And so, yeah, it's now a journey of yoga, life coaching, meditation. And I know that it's going to keep evolving and transforming. And I'm so excited for that. But it's really like the first time where I'm really following like what my soul wants to be doing.
So resonate with that. I similarly, going from more practical, very masculine money finance to now more feminine flow and money and finance. It's so different, but like the same underlying tones of foundation exist. So it's incredible how our journeys like unfold. And I'm really curious about your experience with law. Like, how deep did you get into that realm of like, and knowing maybe somewhere deep inside that it wasn't what you wanted, right? Like, how deep did you get
Yeah.
in?
So it's funny because I knew before taking the course that it wasn't for me.
Wild.
But so I did the course, I got a bachelor's in law, and so I guess that's as deep as I went, because then people were like, oh, well, you know, to be a lawyer, you can go to law school after, which was about a 10K investment in pounds. And I was thinking, for something that I really don't want to be doing, that's a lot of money, you know? So that's when I decided to just go and live in different countries and travel the world and just create my own life from there. So I can't say that I got too deep into it, thankfully, because it genuinely isn't for me. But it was still a decision that was against my alignment.
And in like even knowing going into it that it was against it, like what actually was either a deciding factor, like what was the pivot point? Because I think a lot of women struggle with, they know they're out of alignment, like intuitively they know that like this job or this way of making money or this life path isn't for them, but they still continue down that path. And I know even just from meeting with a lot of older women, 50s, 60s, that they are very well aware that that's not the thing, but they've been at it for, at that point, 20, 30, 40 years, that they don't know how to pivot out. So what was like your pivot point?
I think it just was like such a loud voice inside me that was like, okay, this isn't what you want to be doing, which took over. And it was like, you know, it would have been really, really hard for me to pursue a career in law, because there were all these, not only, you know, the 10K to go to law school, which I didn't have the money at the time, that was a like physical obstacle, but there were a lot of like internal obstacles that I just simply didn't want to pursue a career in law. And I think that for this particular example, to be a lawyer, so it's not just going to law school, you have to get like a training contract and then like this and that. So it's a really big commitment. And thankfully that put me off. If it was like a really low barrier to entry, maybe I would have just done it. I'm not sure. But there were all these obstacles. So yeah, thankfully I didn't do it. But I'm trying to think with other things. I think in general, it's this sense of just being really dissatisfied with my life that forces me to pivot. So yeah, I mean, when I was traveling, I did all these different jobs like bartending and, you know, sales and like just all these things just to make money to travel, which weren't aligned with my soul, but it suited me at the time. But it did get to a point where I was like, okay, something inside me is just like really wanting to be expressed and I can't ignore it any longer. So that's where I'm at now.
That's so beautiful. And I think what you just described and what I'm hearing is like the listening to that voice, right? Like the actual tuning into, not avoiding, not like pushing under the rug, which I know
Mm-hmm.
we've all done at different points. It's like really allowing that voice to come through and that intuitive sense of like, okay, what am I truly wanting, and asking that question. That's so powerful. You mentioned kind of the unfolding of, even though there were things that you were wanting, which at the time was maybe the travel and like continuing that experience, and then also doing jobs that maybe weren't necessarily aligned, but you know, they weren't like the commitment of law school. I think this is really important because a lot of people either go one path or the other. They either go all in on security, safety, the paycheck, doing things that they definitely don't want to do, that are definitely not aligned, but they have the security, right? They have
Mm-hmm.
like the money and the things that they need. That was
Mm-hmm.
definitely like a route that I took. Or there are the ones that like they go all in on their passion, and
Mm-hmm.
no matter what, they don't care if they don't make any money or if they make very little money, right?
Yeah.
And there's like this dissension of like it's one way or the other. And so I'm trying to
Mm.
really focus all of our bringing back to like we can make money and have our
Yeah.
passion, but there's a journey to that too, right? So it's like, okay, trusting yourself enough to know that like you went on the travel experience, you're actually like even in travel and the experience of that right
Mm.
now, and you were doing roles that maybe didn't exactly fit, you know, nicely as they are unfolding right now. So maybe share a little bit more about your experience in that, and then also how that unfolded to get you to where you are with the tools that you're helping to support others with.
Yeah, that's an interesting question because I was completely on the other way of like, okay, I'm just going to go in on everything, you know, that's aligned and not really think about the money aspect, which is hugely important because how do we survive in this world with all the needs and wants that we have without money, right? It's just such a beautiful part of life. And so I think it was like looking back now, it was just kind of like an immaturity within myself that just was very naive and thought, yeah, you know, I can just do this, I can just do this. And because it's what I want to be doing, and it's because of these dreams and these visions that I'm having, then surely it'll just be easy, you know, it'll just happen overnight. And yeah, this will be my dream life. And I remember first going into business in graphic design, which is what I actually really wanted to do because of how design can really positively impact the world. So I graduated and then I was like, okay, I'm going to set my business. This means that I can travel all the time. It means I can do yoga teacher training because I'm going to have the freedom to do whatever I want to do. Then I got into business and I was like, oh my God. There is so much hard work and I wasn't expecting that. I think, you know, just being realistic and knowing that even though you do have a passion and a dream and you want to be aligned in your business, you know, it's going to take work and it's most likely going to take hard work. And if you don't know that now, you're going to find that out at some point.
Yeah. Mhm.
It's been a journey of me being, yeah, so getting more aligned, but also having that aspect of of knowing and acting on the fact that I need security in terms of money, because otherwise, A, you don't have a business, and B, you're just not going to be able to support yourself. So now I work with a money coach, which is awesome. And she's really helping me like structure myself and be like, okay, what are your desires? Like, what are your dreams, and how to really align that in, you know, in the material world, because I can be so up here that I forget like just how important, like, you know, the physical material world is. So I see what you're saying, and we definitely need that mixture of both. And I think the mixture of both is like where it's at. Like, isn't that the most beautiful part, where it's working in the material world and like the spiritual world, even though they're kind of both the same, right?
Absolutely. And there's that like integration of, okay, how can I create both? How can I allow both in so that my passions pull through and like I get those desires fulfilled and the
Mm-hmm.
practicality of it also occurs. And what I love to expand women into is like and the building of wealth, right? And like okay, now our stability is there, now we can maintain that, and how do we expand that even further and be comfortable enough to build wealth and create massive impact, because then that's the other two things. It's the impact that we want to create and having wealth to allow that to be on an even more massive scale. So
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk a little bit about rituals. Like, what are some of the rituals that you have, either around money or things that help you remain grounded in your desires and what you want?
So I love meditation. There's a really amazing meditation journey on YouTube with Alicia Keys and Deepak Chopra, I think that's how you say his name, on the divine feminine, which is basically like part of the divine feminine is abundance. And abundance, you know, is money, but it includes so many other things as well. And it's a 21-day journey, and each day is different. It takes you through, like Alicia Keys saying, like this little spiel at the beginning, which is just beautiful. And then it's chanting, which, if that puts you off, like if Alicia Keys can do it, then we all can do it, right?
Totally.
So that's really helped kind of expand things internally and help me see differently. Like, yeah, it's helped me see differently for sure. So that's really grounding. I also have incense, which are like fortune incense, which I like to light every now and then just to like get in the vibe. Part of an abundance group, actually.
Yeah, that's how we met, through some of
Yes,
that.
the
Hmm.
abundance group, just being around like-minded people who have all these desires and who just have such good hearts as well. Like, to be around people that want to impact the world in a positive way, who are also, you know, wanting to allow more abundance and wealth into their life is really amazing. Yeah, I think that's it off the top of my head.
I think all of those are really important. And I love that you brought up the abundance conversation. Like, that is like, oh my gosh, I love talking about abundance because it's not just about the money. I think we first go to like the money piece of it. But when you
Yeah.
really like dive into it, it's an abundance of time, it's an abundance of peace, of love, of joy, all of these amazing, juicy pieces of life that if we have one of them, and have figured it out, if that's a thing, then we can figure it out in all of them. And so whichever one hits best. I have a client who like has just an abundance of love for her work and what she's doing, and so we've used that to filter through to the abundance of time or joy or money. And so it's so interesting to watch how that unfolds for different people.
Yeah.
If you were to share like one thing that you feel like you've kind of figured out for like every woman in the world, like one thing that they should know and feel to experience with money specifically, what would it be?
I think that it's like ever changing and like morphing. Like, it used to, you know, being like hard cash, and now, what was is the percentage like it's only like 9% in like actual cash and the rest is like digital or something?
Hmm.
And, you know, I think the one thing that clicked for me is that there really is an abundance of money, Whereas before I thought there was only like this set amount of money, and that meant that like these certain people had this amount of money, and that means that we have this amount of money. And that's the mindset that I had before. But it's like, okay, that it's like this open floodgate of like what's possible. So yeah, I guess it's the expansion that money can provide.
What do you feel like in learning that journey for yourself, what do you feel like it's expanded you in?
Knowing that my dreams are possible, because if you think there's only a certain amount of money in the world and it goes to like allocated people, then it kind of stops you from moving forward. But knowing that, you know, it's ever changing and there's more and more and more of it, it's like, okay, I can really show up how I want to be. Yes, I've got to do all the internal work to allow that in, otherwise it's just like it's never gonna happen. It's knowing that you can show up in the world as you're meant to.
That's so good. Do you have any like interesting stories of how you've allowed opportunities in with money that have allowed you to kind of expand into what's possible?
Yeah, I really wanted to go to design school in New York, and it's not cheap.
Mhm.
And I just remember thinking like, I'm going, like, you know, this is my dream, this is my passion. I put everything into it. So I knew like, okay, if I put 100% into this, to get a scholarship. I should have mentioned that before. Yeah, to get a scholarship, then it just, so if I put 100% into getting the scholarship and I don't get it, then I know that I've done everything that I could possibly have done and it wasn't for me. But I put 100% into it, got the scholarship, and also I don't know if I can say manifested, but I received money from inheritance, which like covered like my expenses for living there, considering that I couldn't have had a job at the time because it was full time. So everything just kind of happened because I was so committed, and I even bought clothes for New York before I even got accepted, just knowing that okay, I'm going. So yeah, it was kind of like proved to me that if you go 100% in a direction that is like what you truly dream of, and you don't make any excuses, like you really, really give it your all, then I really do feel like everything else is going to come together for you to like support you in that goal, because you're doing everything that you can do.
And energetically, I mean, you're speaking into energetics at that point. Your energy is physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually all in, right, to that
Yeah,
thing that you want. And when you
yeah.
create that, that's when you are literally attracting and, to your point, manifesting all of the opportunities that are available to create that experience for your life. So when you are tapped into that and tuned into that, you know and trust that that's what it is and you'll figure it out. But it's not
Yeah,
even a matter of you figuring it out at that point. It's really more of the attraction that you're creating for that path to unfold. That's beautiful.
yeah, it was magic.
Yeah, that's incredible. I'm going to shift gears a little bit here. As far as like, and this is kind of the big, scary, audacious question, but what is your biggest fear with money?
I know why I have this fear. And the fear I have around money is that it's just gonna go in like an instant, because I saw it happen to someone that I love. But then I was thinking about this before, like, so I saw this happen as a child to an adult, and I just saw it as like this money just being lost like that. But obviously, as a child, I didn't see all the actions that led up to this point. I just thought it was like an instant loss. So it's something that I'm still working through at the moment. But yeah, that's inner Shan coming
Mhm.
out.
How does that fear dictate sometimes how you make decisions around money?
In the past, I haven't felt like I wanted to make a lot of money because I was so scared that it was just going to go and like my life would just, you know, change really drastically like how it did before. But I'm learning, you know, in my adult years that I don't have to rewrite that story, and that it doesn't have to be true for me if it was true for someone else.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. It's so interesting as we like I have similar stories of fears around money, and a lot of us either hoard or like we just completely release. Like it's very much this contracting or expanding of, and not, I'm not talking about expansion in a good way. It's more of like not caring about what
Mhm.
happens. And so usually when our fears are drawn up, then these different decisions get made. So it's so interesting how we each navigate through that. And even watching like my own parents navigate through that now, it's just so interesting to see, to your point, like how it's actually unfolded in their
Mhm.
lives, like what decisions have led to other decisions, have led to other decisions. And the further on down these paths that we get that may or may not serve us or be aligned with our wants and desires, like the further
Mhm.
off track we get. So
Wow.
yeah, it's just so important to like, okay, really continuously, like if we get a little off track, continuously get back to like, what do we want? What do we want?
I think you really need help to do that sometimes, though. Like, I honestly can't get through things like that myself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I need a coach
Mm-hmm.
to even like ask me questions that prompt me to be like, okay, I actually have this inside me that was unconscious, and then bringing it to the
Mm-hmm.
conscious again.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, it's like, okay, we're making decisions, but we don't even really know why.
Mm-hmm.
So I think coaches are just
Mm-hmm.
incredibly amazing.
I just started working with a new coach actually this morning, and same type of process like unfolded. I was like, this is why I need this. Like every time I step into that container with a coach, like there's always resistance. And then it's like this unfolding. It's like, oh, this is
Mm.
why everyone needs a coach. Everyone needs like that hand holding to uncover what's beneath that we're not seeing within ourselves. So
For
so
sure.
so powerful. What's maybe some questions that you've kind of discovered in your process that have helped you with uncovering like what's been in the subconscious?
They're not really my questions, but what's really helped me is Amanda Francis.
Hmm.
I've read her book, Rich's, I don't know if you can swear.
Yeah, go for
Can you
it.
swear?
Yeah.
Okay, Rich's book.
Uh-huh.
And she has journal prompts, which are really interesting. And also Ken Honda, we spoke about Ken Honda before, he's a
Hmm.
mutual love. He has a course which also has prompts that you can journal on, which goes into like your money story with your mum, your dad, just everything that you can remember about money. And you can see like, okay, this is why I've been doing this, etc.,
Hmm.
etc. So I would really recommend to go check out Amanda Francis or Ken Honda, and learn from people that are really in this space, who are like have they've really mastered this area of life. Like it's only been the past year that I've kind of got onto this journey, and like I
Hmm.
have to kind of like congratulate myself that I've even been asked to come on this to speak to you about money, because if this was me like 5 years ago,
Hmm.
there's no chance that I ever would have shown up to or even been asked for something like this. Like,
Yeah.
it's just not.
Yeah.
So yeah, plenty of people that we can learn from.
Yeah, absolutely. And the whole intention here is like we're all on this journey along that path, right? So like Amanda Francis, and I've read her book, Rich as Fuck too. It's amazing. Definitely recommend it. And then
Mm.
Ken Honda's book is Happy Money. And again, it's also an amazing book. And they are further along on their journey than I would think even me or you are. So it's like
Oh yeah.
just all of us expanding into what's possible and seeing someone who's ahead, 10 steps ahead, or 100 steps ahead probably in their cases, to really track back to, okay, how can I utilize this path to help support my own journey? And that's why I wanted you to come on here, is to support others and knowing and trusting that yes, you can go all in on your passion, and yes, you're not going to die from it or lose everything or anything, and see how that unfolds, because each of us are on that path on a different
Mm.
part of the milestones. And so it's so important that we talk about this, because I find that every woman I've asked to join this conversation has been like, oh no, I don't think that I'm worthy of that. Like, I don't think I'm ready for that. Or there's always some resistance. And it's so intriguing to me, because in hearing thousands of women's stories over my career, it's like,
Yeah.
no, you all need to hear each other's stories, because
Yeah.
like it will help everyone expand. So it's just kind of become a new like mission, part of my mission rather, of expanding everyone through everyone else's stories, because
Oh my God, I love
being
that.
here with this like objective view of it all, like, no,
Yeah,
your story will help her and this will help her, and
I
it's like putting
love
all
it.
the pieces together is just so fun to like explore and navigate with all of you. So I do thank you for being here. There's a couple other questions I want to wrap up with. Specifically, what, because I know you're working on a few different things, so what projects are you working on now that you would like to share with others or let others know about?
Well, I have a podcast called Women of the World, which Rochelle featured on. You're one of the first, which is awesome. And so it helps guide people back to their true self. And it was 30 women over 30 days speaking about everything from, money mindset to alternative therapies to female pleasure, like everything to kind of help you get back in touch with yourself. So that's my little baby, which is growing into something else soon too. Yoga teacher training, which is really cool. And I think that will really set a base for like my life coaching, which is coming up because it has roots in that. That's it right now.
Nice.
Yeah.
So are you offering the life coaching at this point, or you're building like a program for it?
Yeah, building.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I think it'll be infused with meditations as well, like the whole package of like yoga, meditation, and life
Mm-hmm.
coaching. So
Mm-hmm. Okay.
yeah.
So right now, you're still just in the realm of like offering the meditation coaching. Is that accurate?
So there's
Or no?
meditations on Spotify if people want to
Okay.
have a look. It's under Women of the World. From starting doing like yoga philosophy, you learn that actually there's so much of life within that you can help coach people from. Whereas before, for me, it was kind of like this intuitive space that I know I can help people from what I've experienced in the past. But I have this grounding now. So
Mhm.
I'm kind of actually taking the time to really do it like with really strong foundations now.
So do it for yourself and then teach others what you've been learning. Sounds like.
Yeah, and just have that foundation in yoga, whereas the
Yep.
foundation before was kind of like in my past history, which is
Yeah.
great.
Intuitive.
But yoga is like everything.
Hmm. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And where can people connect with you?
So on Instagram at Shan Sarusi, ShanSarussi. Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn, although I don't really go on there. Shansarusi.org, and then Women of the World podcast on Spotify.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Anything else you want to share?
But I love you.
I love you too. And I thank you so much for being here. This has been
Oh,
beautiful and incredible. And yeah, I just appreciate you sharing and expanding others on their journey. So thank you.
thanks for having me. I've
Yeah,
enjoyed it.
absolutely.